Welcome to Bachelor Party, finale night one. I'm Juliet Litman, joined by Mallory Rubin. We are here to process that wild finale.
Oh my God, Juliet, you're an angel on earth!
I'm no Hannah Ann. Who could be? We are going to do 6 big questions coming out of part 1 of Peter's finale. Peter's season in general has just gone in a direction I really didn't anticipate.
Despite Chris Harrison telling you time and time again that it would be the most dramatic finale and that even Peter didn't know how it was going to end.
And Chris Harrison, before it aired back in December, was like, you really should do this after Peter's season when I was doing the countdown because he's like, I want to know where this would rank.
Well,
it ranked high.
True nature of ranking anything on the internet is that you do it early enough that you can then do it again.
Yeah, of course. Duh. Chris Harrison, come on. We're going to talk more about where this stacks up against other past seasons, past finales. Certainly going to talk more about Chris Harrison. But first question of the night. What's the most shocking that a Weber said in tonight's episode?
Oh, my God. No shortage of options.
So many options. Peter's family definitely stole the show tonight. Madison's eyelashes tried, but they were upstaged by the Weber clan.
Incredible showing from Barb.
Barb was a lot. I want to start with Peter, to be honest.
Okay.
So this whole season was building up to bring her home.
Yes.
The Les Mis reference that she probably didn't know she was making. And it was good.
Yeah.
More on that later.
Okay.
But Peter had an incredible response to his mother, which was, you got to stop doing this. This is insane right now. And
don't do this to me.
I wasn't expecting Peter to respond that way.
It's literally destroying me right now. He said, you got to stop doing this about 15 times
15
in a row.
times, yes.
Very tough. I felt bad for him. My heart right now is racing.
Is it?
And I can't tell if it's because of the emotional, confusing nature of what we just watched together or because I've had 8 cups of coffee today. But if I feel this way now, imagine how Peter felt in that moment.
Especially because we know he really lives for his family's approval.
His family is very important to him.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't live for it, but it is very important to him time and time again. One of the things him and Madison bonded over was family.
Yes.
And so for his family to not take a liking to Madison, to put it lightly, must have been a real shock to his system.
He seemed completely and totally despondent.
Yes.
Now, I will say a theme of the episode and indeed of the season, my primary emotion at the end is that I feel bad for Peter. I feel bad for Hannah Ann. I feel bad for everybody involved. But I don't think he did himself any favors with how he presented all of this information to his family.
Well, has anyone talked about their sex life more with their family than Peter? And then when Madison came in, they repeated back to her what Peter had told them. So all parties had to acknowledge that the roadblock, as they called it, was that Peter had slept with other women, whether you want to say. Madison said he slept with someone else, or I think she said sleep, whatever the tense was. He referred to being intimate, as he has so many times. His brother actually said sex. Shout out to his brother Jack. Just a lot of sex talk. I guess we should have expected no less from Peter 4 times in a windmill.
Yeah, I mean, very sex-positive family, which I admire and appreciate.
Yeah.
You know, never forget that his parents at the live studio show for Hannah's season, they were whooping and cheering him on and clapping when everybody was celebrating his sexual prowess.
And weeping. There were tears as well.
Yes, and of course, in the recent snippet that we got of Peter and Chris Harrison and his family going about town to crash the Bachelor viewing parties, the whole shtick about his parents fucking in the backseat of the car. You know, sex is a through line of Peter's entire Bachelor arc.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, it actually made perfect sense to me that his family would respond that way because, first of all, and I want to be clear, like, no judgment about the choice that Madison has made for her own life, and no judgment about ultimately the way that she wants to conduct things in her relationship with Peter. I think that his parents clearly felt that there was judgment, which was part of why they responded that way. You know, how basically like you're making our son feel bad for being a physical sexual person. And they were offended by that because that is clearly a part of how they conduct their own life.
Sure. I have a slightly different take on this, which
Let's
brings
hear it.
me to my second favorite quote from a Weber of the evening, which
Okay.
was Barb explaining to Madison, he parties.
Oh my God.
That was amazing. Also, Jack also reminded Peter, you're nonstop, you're out at the club.
That was my favorite.
I wish we had seen more of Peter's party side. I just want to throw that out there.
That was amazing.
I think that it's like, I think it's judgment is a good way of interpreting it, but I just felt like they were like,
they're incompatible.
Yeah, their lifestyles are so incompatible. They're like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
they're like, Peter, you party. Peter, are you willing to sacrifice your social life?
Totally. I don't necessarily think that they were implying that Madison was trying to shame Peter or make him feel bad about the way he was living, just that they were observing that they're totally out of sync with each other, which of course is ultimately what Madison concluded as well when she broke up with him in this episode. But like right before Peter's brother said you're nonstop, you're out at the club, and we talked about line dancing, which of course we had seen how much Peter likes line dancing earlier
he was
in the
like
season.
so worried about his line dancing being imperiled.
His brother, his brother's a young man. Young men think about sex a lot.
Sure,
that's fine. It seemed inconceivable to his brother that Peter could be thinking about proceeding with somebody that he had not slept with. And that was fascinating.
And would continue to wait.
Yes.
I think his brother was worried he wouldn't be able to wait.
Like Peter was like, of course I can.
Yeah,
this is a choice I'm making. That whole interaction was amazing.
One thing we definitely have learned is that Peter's view of himself is different than his family's view of him, which just reinforces to me that Peter needs to move. Peter, you need to live on your own, get outside of the Weber home. As someone who's very close to her family, I get it. You just need to get out there sometimes. And it was stark that they were like, Peter, what are you doing? This is not who you are. Also, his mom was like, Peter, I love who he is and I don't want him to change.
Yeah, so
they're very worried about him changing.
That was a theme as well. I just want to make sure you're not compromising any level of yourself. This was again with his brother. And Peter almost got mad when he responded to that. He was like, that's what relationships
good response
are.
Peter, good response.
Yes, and I think that, again, that was what was so fascinating about the dynamic at play here. Everything that Peter's family was saying came from a place of genuine love and affection for him.
Sure.
They think he's perfect, so they don't want him to be with somebody who doesn't feel that way about him. But, of course, you know, and I am not saying that Peter and Madison belong together. I think that would be a, frankly, bizarre takeaway after watching this entire season. But
Peter party, so sorry.
Loves to line dance. I do think that starting a relationship where the foundation is just that you both are obsessed with each other and think you're flawless is actually not a recipe for sustained success, because I got some really rough news for everybody out there. Like, people are not perfect and relationships are really hard.
I know, but no one seems to really grasp that, because then they're like, Hannah Ann's an angel.
Yes, an angel on earth.
It was just sort of like Madison was being compared to an impossible standard. And I think it's just, you know, there's been a lot of questions about editing this season, which I think continued into this episode. There was a couple of moments where we're like, is this out of order? Like, how is this happening? I did really wonder how long the conversation between Peter and Madison was out front. But the first thing we see Peter telling his parents about Madison is that she gave them the roadblock and like the quasi ultimatum or whatever. I guess we can call it an ultimatum now that Peter has.
So felt uncomfortable wielding the word as a weapon, but he ultimately had to.
But now that he has, I feel like we can say it. And if he had perhaps presented things a little bit differently and they weren't so sex positive, like, could things have been different?
I don't know. I think that, again, he didn't necessarily set things up in a way that was going to make them receptive to welcoming Madison, though of course we should not forget that they had already met her. They had already had an experience with her, so I think if they had developed a lot of affection for her after the initial date, I mean, we saw how quickly they became totally enraptured with Hannah Ann. It's not like it's impossible for somebody to make a good first impression with them, right? So maybe that didn't happen and that was part of it too. I don't know.
Peter's mom was like, he falls so hard.
Yes.
And so maybe they fall hard as well, and then there's a wake-up call. Because I do...
Maybe. We got a speech from his mother about how God had placed Hannah Ann in Peter's path. And again, I say that in a judgment-free way. I think that that's a thing that happens in people's lives where they feel that way. But how long is that interaction that they have with her?
Very short. Although Peter, when I interviewed him, like, you know, almost 2 months ago now, he said like, Madison handled it really well and his family really liked her when they had that first one-on-one. So... Who knows? I think he positioned it poorly. Like, I think if he had introduced her slightly differently, like, do you need to air out all of your drama right away? I mean, I understand this is The Bachelor, so it's not like normal rules apply, but still, if he had presented her slightly differently, I don't know he would have gotten the same reactions from Barb, because her facial expressions, the second he started talking about the sex stuff, she just, like, was losing her mind. It was very, very entertaining. I mean, Barb is an instant Bachelor icon.
Just incredible stuff from Barb.
I don't think that any other parent has lived up to this or will in the future, because it was such an incredible performance by his mother.
A mother's intuition is never wrong, as she says.
And then the other thing that was just wild is when she was like, the exact language I don't quite recall, but she was like, just to be clear, you don't share that level of faith. She was like, you don't. He's not there.
Right. So she talked, that was a fascinating exchange, because she talked about how Peter is spiritual.
Yes. Like her.
She is spiritual. I thought,
in relation to Madison having her faith, there's a big difference between faith and spiritualness for them. Spirituality.
I thought that, and I think we're going to get to Madison's enlightenment in a few minutes. And I thought that a lot of what she said in the breakup conversation with Peter reflected a new level of sage insight. I thought that was a part of the conversation with the family that approached that actual level of like important candor about, not necessarily like a snap judgment about whether somebody seems to be doting on your precious boy enough, which again, like I get your parents, you love your kid, you want somebody else to love your kid fully too. It would be, I guess, weird, and especially a televised experiment, not to go all like Love is Blind and start wielding the word experiment, but like a televised experiment about whether you could fall in love really quickly. When we were in the pods, you're supposed to play the game. Like right reasons talk aside, you're supposed to get to the end and say, I want to do, you're supposed to say what Hannah Ann said. You're supposed to say, I want to do whatever I have to do to show you that I love you. And the dissonance that's set in watching this is, I think, kind of incredible, because as a rational human being living life in the world, I'm watching Madison thinking, thank God somebody thinks this is a weird way to fall in love with somebody. But then the other part of you, kind of the one who buys into watching The Bachelor and obviously loves Bachelor Nation and the joy of watching this every week, is like, why are you here if you're not willing
I've been wondering
to
that
engage?
for weeks. Like, what was Madison expecting when she went on this show?
And I'm sure that his parents had an aspect of that playing out for them in real time too, especially because given that he was on Hannah's season, they've been through this whole thing before. I mean, they've welcomed the show and the camera into their lives. To see someone else rebelling against that is probably like anathema to them.
I think there's a couple of important things to remember along those lines. First of all, Peter's mom is the one who suggested he apply for the show when he did so like several years ago. So she is, she referred to the fantasy suite when she was talking to Madison. Like, I understand not wanting to go to the fantasy suite. She's really aware of how this goes and really aware of the game. I presume that she had all this in mind when she went shopping for that very colorful tube top she was wearing. Like, she knew what she was.
Look.
Yeah, she knew what she was getting into. I'm sure Peter's brother and father did as well. Like, they're like, these are the beats of the show. We watch the show.
Right.
Oh, Madison has some hesitation about that. Instead of being like, oh, that's cool, she's thinking about it on her own terms, they were just sort of appalled. Plus, Peter parties. I honestly think they were like, well, he parties.
Go out. Yeah.
They want someone who's fun, which I understand. You have a new family member, you want them to fit in and do the same things.
Totally.
And in this case, line dancing. We can't lose that.
Hannah Ann is so bubbly. I thought it was also notable, we're in the best thing a Weber said. This is like a slightly subtler entry, but I thought the way that his dad said the way you describe her, she sounds like you, is very applicable to what we're talking about right now. Like, they want somebody who is not only going to mesh well with Peter, but somebody who's going to fit into their family because of how close he is to his parents and his brother and how much time they spend together as a unit. They need somebody, like a puzzle piece that fits in perfectly. This can't be like Survivor Challenge where midway through the puzzle you realize that you have one of the pieces on backwards and Jeff is going to tell you that you've embarrassed yourself.
With reality right now.
I know.
Peter just embarrassing himself right now.
An absolute disaster for DeGaulle. Winners of War, great stuff.
Weber, you check it out on Ring or Dish on Thursday mornings with Riley McAtee. The Webers should go on like another reality show together, though.
They should do Amazing Race.
Yes, they should. They definitely should. Or like they would be good for Bravo. One thing about Peter this whole episode, he's never looked more LA than in this episode, particularly with him and.
Oh my God, hard disagree.
Really?
Yeah.
He just looked like a basic guy. He just was wearing like his like blue shirt and blue shorts. Went hard on the color blue, which I respect. But when him and Hannah Ann were visiting the kangaroos, which was very cute.
That was precious.
Very cute.
Even you, famed animal hater.
I'm not an animal hater. I'm animal apathetic. I'm animal blind. And I thought that was very cute. I like baby kangaroos and baby elephants. Animals I would never interact with.
Feeding them the
it was
milk
adorable.
in the bottle and swaddling them.
Absolutely adorable.
So heart-melting.
Even I thought so.
Oh my God.
Even I noticed. noticed.
Precious.
But what did you think? What were you thinking about his style? Everyone had really weird style tonight. Peter's mom was dressed for a cruise.
Yeah.
Peter was dressed for like going to the ArcLight in Thousand Oaks.
Was he?
Yes, in like August.
He
100%.
was wearing a long sleeve button down shirt and shorts, and then like Toms.
Yeah, that's like a weird pseudo Newport, pseudo hippie like amalgam that comes together in the valley.
It felt very contrary to his typical style, which is, I also lacking generally, but like the skinny gray jeans that he wore, that was more of a typical Peter look. He normally wears the jeans and the boots or the Converse. And like
he's styled.
The shorts and the long sleeves just threw me off with him this episode. I don't know.
Okay.
It was very strange.
Okay, and then
I will say he looked his best when he woke up in an utterly depressed stupor, shirtless in joggers,
great look.
gazing out into the abyss. I thought he looked incredible.
I've got questions about the temperature of wearing no shirt but joggers, but whatever. Let's leave that for another time.
I bet you Peter sleeps naked normally
and just put the pants on for. I was wondering, like, does he know there's cameras here? Like when he's looking despondent, waking up. I also, it's funny you say that though, because I like Peter the most when he's punching back. Like I liked when he was like pushing back against his family. I like when he got into the fight with Victoria. I like when he fought with Madison. I was like, good, show us some fight, man. What he wants to see from everyone else, I like seeing in him. Like I like it when he punches back, basically.
Interesting.
Is that weird?
I wonder what you're projecting here about.
I like fighting, so it's simple as that.
I do like when he is able to express something beyond just some kind of canned, oh, this is so crazy right now sort of line about like the very base nature of what is unfolding around them. He's so one note all the time, and like I think he's sweet. I don't want to be mean, but
well, it's a little late on this podcast. I have to say, I think he's sweet too.
He's very sweet,
and yes, as I've said many a time, I think if I just like met him in the wild, I'd be like, this is a great guy. Someone should date him. He's made a lot of questionable choices as a Bachelor.
I think that you and we, the collective Bachelor viewing public, have talked often this season about how Peter is a bad Bachelor.
Yes, Roger wrote a very good piece about this.
Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think that Peter is a very well-behaved Bachelor in the sense that he follows the rules. He does a lot of what he's supposed to. Now, not always.
Is he following the rules, or is he being led down a certain path?
This is
very willingly.
Yes, he is a willing participant in what he has in what he is.
That's what I
in.
think as well.
So part of why it's notable when he fights back is because it's some of the only time, and he's a passionate person, so
Definitely.
I don't want to imply that there's like
4 times in a windmill, Mel.
Well, again,
questions.
I don't know that it necessarily reflects passion, but sure. Those moments when it's just totally organic, this is how I feel and I have to tell you, just feels much truer to life than a moment where he's responding to his dad who's saying, oh, like, are you leaning a certain way? And he's like, I need more time. Like, clearly that's not how he felt. He was leaning in a certain direction.
Right.
Very, very, very clearly was leaning in Madison's direction. And
he says, I'm crazy in love for Madison.
Yes.
He quoted the great Beyonce. I mean, if that's not a declaration of love, what is?
Great point.
Great point. He's really into Madison. Let's talk about Peter and Madison. Okay. Second question. Are Peter and Madison really done? So when I was first formulating these questions, I had assumed that we would get up to the point in part 1 where based on nothing, just purely an assumption, that we would get up to the rose ceremony that's been teased so many times. Okay. And as it was like, 9:50, I was just like, there's only 10 minutes left, and he's in the hotel room with Hannah Ann, like, when are we getting to this rose ceremony? Right. So and then we watched the teaser for tomorrow. Yeah. I was shocked to see that sit down with Chris Harrison. I'm about to say that Chris down. That sit down with Chris Harrison and Madison. And I was like, wait, what? And I just, because I think we've assumed as we were watching that at the rose ceremony, he finds out Madison has left. Like that was before tonight. Yes. Now we know
she had already left.
He already knew that. So are Peter and Madison done? It takes on a whole other question when we see that she says to Chris Harrison she has regret. So clearly they're not done, but like, what is there to salvage here?
So a rich text there to parse. I think there are various possibilities that we have to consider. Yeah. And probably some that we could not even possibly conceive of. First of all, let's not forget that a large part of the season has been built around teasing what you just mentioned, which is the moment when Peter's in a suit, clearly about to engage in the final rose ceremony, right? And Chris Harrison tells him something that he has just learned.
Yes.
Okay? Now.
It's the last thing I want to hear right now. It's like seared in my mind.
Here's my leading theory for what is going to unfold. But then I want to issue a caveat.
Okay.
I think that Peter is going to convince himself overnight after Hannah Ann's, I thought, like, incredibly sweet and moving, not only declaration of love, but, like, please give me a little something back. This is really hard.
Really?
I felt really awful for her in that moment.
I have to say, both Hannah Ann and Madison made a whole lot of sense tonight, and I really feel for both of them. I feel for Peter as well. I feel
less so, though.
I feel less so for Peter. I feel he's put both of those women in a light that makes me really feel for them. Really,
yes.
Both of them. And I think you're right. I mean, seeing Hannah Ann look so hot when she opened the door.
Unbelievable.
In that, like, orange dress.
Unbelievable.
And
Peter and his,
he's shown up in, like, his obvious breakup sweatshirt. I think he went in there, like, intending to break up with her. That he put no effort into how he looked. He was wearing that I found very attractive, but clearly, like, connoting that he was, like, a mess. Mm-hmm. I think he went there to end things with her. But she looked too hot.
It's definitely possible.
He decided against it because she looked really hot.
She looked incredible.
Maybe the hottest she's looked all season.
An angel on earth, as we've heard before.
An angel on earth.
I think he's going to wake up and say, my family's right. I have an incredible woman here
in Hannah
Ann who worships me and is telling me that no matter what choices I've made, no matter how much time I needed, no matter how painful it was for her to wait, she did wait, and she's there for me at the end. And he's going to prepare to propose to her. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to be clear. I am not endorsing that decision on Peter's part because he is very clearly in love with Madison.
Very clearly.
Okay. I think that as he is preparing to do that, Chris Harrison is going to tell him, just as he has gotten over the hump and decided to propose to Hannah
48 hours after having his heart broken, he's gotten over the hump.
Madison is back.
Right.
Madison did not leave. She had a change of heart. She is here. And he's going to say, my heart can't take this anymore. I had finally found clarity, but this is who I want to be with, and this is what I need. I think he will let Hannah Ann go. Then he will have to go and apologize to her, right?
I'm even more, I was just checking out her hairline tonight. Even more positive he's apologizing to her.
I do want to posit, though. This is the caveat. I am not certain that the snippet we saw of Madison talking to Chris Harrison occurred back then. I think it's very probable or possible that that is a present day conversation, that after the fact she has regret.
I think that's what happened. Here's what I think. Okay. I think that Chris Harrison says they've heard from Madison. Yeah. She thinks she's made a mistake. What do you want to do here? And then he's felled. He has to go to his bed and lie down with the towels on the bed.
I need time.
Still confused
Cold
about
compress.
That. Yes, exactly. Wearing the blue suit. So much blue from him. I guess it looks nice against the orange terrain. Looks lovely in Australia.
You should ask to swaddle a little kangaroo to comfort him.
I think he finds out Madison has regrets, but he's like, fuck that. I've selected Hannah Ann and proposed to her. Or whatever, or just says like I want to be with you, if not proposal,
and then has a change of heart and breaks up.
Then has a change of heart.
This is the other thing.
Paul's an Ari. I've been much like Peter. I've been felled by the locations the interior locations they've been in Australia, like the different Airbnbs and house rentals, and the space that Chris and Madison was in looked like your grandma's like dining room.
Right.
It did not look like one of these suspiciously like underwhelming spaces that they've been in for the last 3 episodes. So I think that's back in America.
There's also a very, very, very clear difference in Peter's facial hair in some of the upcoming shots.
His beard tonight looked A+. Loved it. Athletic Rubin. I really liked it.
I liked it where there was beard. But the line is too high. This is a mistake guys make all the time. You have to let it grow further down.
Might be his first beard. Maybe he doesn't have a lot of beard experience or something.
How I feel about beards. They're great.
Can you have a beard as a pilot? Like, maybe he has to shave.
I mean, is being a pilot like being on the New York Yankees?
I don't know.
Facial hair policies? This is a great question.
I don't know. Or like being in the Army where you're also
I mean, obviously, his dad has a mustache.
I can't think of a pilot that I've had who's had a beard. Off the top of my head, I fly a lot. Also, don't pay a ton of attention when I'm, but off the top of my head, I can't think of one. Just throwing it out there.
Goose in Top Gun obviously had a mustache. I think you had a minimum you can have a mustache.
Yeah,
so
but
of course, on
they're
the Yankees,
they're
you
in the
can also have a
military
mustache.
in Top Gun,
So
it's different.
I mean, watch this season of The Bachelor and tell me that they're not trying to get us to think about Top Gun all the time.
They are. They definitely are. Well, yeah. So I think that sit down with Chris Harrison happens in America. I think all of the hysterics are going to happen back in America. I feel like Peter wants to like wrap this up.
But so who's he going to end up with? No one.
I think Peter right now, I don't know if he's with anyone. I don't know. It's weird, but I just want to say, like,
he wants to be with Madison.
Yes, he wants to be with Madison, and she made a lot of sense. And one thing that really became very apparent as we've been talking this through and we're just processing in real time,
Yes.
Hannah Ann kept saying, I'm not just in love with him now, but I see a future. And she said that over and over again. Mm-hmm. Whereas Madison, you know, she seemed very wise tonight. She was like, on top of that tower, I would have said yes if you proposed. I'm in love with you. Or she actually doesn't say I'm in love with you. She says, I love you. And I really thought I could see my life with you. But like, there's just too many things that are different. And she then says she's ready to surrender like multiple times.
Yes.
And there was like,
but ultimately that meant concede defeat and realize that they're not meant to be.
Is that a defeat?
Not surrender to love, which is how it initially seemed like it might be playing. And how Peter then later used it.
Right before they went to a commercial at one point, she said, it's time to surrender.
Yes.
And not to love.
Correct.
To the absence of a future together. And that's really rough. Yeah. I have to say, for everyone involved, probably except for Peter's family, this is going to be a very tough watch. Like, just
painful.
So painful. But
though I think that Hannah Ann was just so likable.
Yes.
It was heartbreaking to watch her. Let me ask you one more question
sad
about this in terms of who he might end up with. Do you think that Hannah Ann has Lauren B potential? Like,
no.
If
Ari's Lauren.
Yeah. If Peter picks Madison, either because she comes back or because he can't make a decision and then ultimately decides that he wants to be with her and they give it a shot and then they break up for whatever reason, she leaves him, they realize they are not in fact compatible for the 500 reasons that she listed in this episode and that his family also listed.
Peter parties and Madison's drinking sparkling apple juice, which Peter was clearly disgusted by. I don't think he's had juice without vodka in it in a long time.
I thought it was notable how over the course of the episode the word lifestyle came up a lot.
Yes.
Okay. If Peter then goes back and apologizes to Hannah Ann, not for breaking her heart and putting her through hell, but for making the wrong choice.
No.
Will she take him back?
I don't know. I don't think so. Also, I feel like I have too much info about Hannah Ann, as discussed on the Bachelor Party.
Right.
Josh Dobbs, yeah. She's been seen out there.
Maybe they're just bros.
Maybe. Absolutely. Hannah Ann seems fun. I have to say that. She seems like game. I'm like very pro Hannah Ann. I wasn't at first, but I am now. She seems like she just kind of, she wants to make it work. She seems like fun gal to hang out with.
Theme of the season, again, is just every first impression about everyone was wrong.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Absolutely. Every single one. Also, I think the way that Peter's apologizing and like pleading when we see him outside that door, she'd be like, I am so sorry, is not like a conciliatory, but more like kind of like groveling and guilt driven, you know? So I don't know. I don't have a lot of hope for whatever that relationship is. I can't see him with either of these women. I really can't. I do think the lifestyle differences with Madison are too big. And I think if I were Hannah Ann, there would be almost no way I could watch this and be like, oh, so
you wanted to be with me.
Yeah.
It would be impossible to have that takeaway. It really
Impossible. And also Madison comes off as like very level-headed and like more mature. I thought that Madison really came off pretty well in this episode, though I was at various points distracted by different things. I also kind of liked how she didn't let Peter's mom just like walk all over her. Like she tried to defend herself.
She has, I think, no problem clearly
explaining how she feels and why.
Standing up for her, her beliefs and as she said, I'm not going to apologize for, the choices that I've made, nor should she. Again, I continue to have like a bit of a problem, again, in no way with the decision that she has made for her own life, but just with the why are you on this show aspect of it. If
it's not clear why she stayed after she found out that he had slept with two other women.
Yeah, and I get the part of it where it's like I really do love this person, or I think I could fall in love with this person, whatever, and I want to try to see it through and give it every chance that I can. I don't want to be unfair, but no aspect of the way The Bachelor unfolds is in line with how Madison wants to live her life. And that's completely fine.
Right.
But don't go on The Bachelor then.
Right.
You know, and don't make The Bachelor wonder why this relationship is unfolding on The Bachelor. I just find that part of it strange. But I agree with you that once they got to the breakup, that whole conversation, I thought the way that she articulated the chasm between the way they lived their lives was ultimately like, you know, a courageous thing to do. It's hard to be able to admit to yourself that the person you want to be with is not right for you and that you're not right for them. And it's obviously a challenging part in the process of this show to have to say that and make that choice, you know? I think, like, there's a part of it where you could say if you knew this wasn't going to work out, leave earlier so that he has a chance with other people. But given the other people, it's like it was not going to work with him and Victoria. It just wasn't. So I don't feel like we got cheated out of that.
Me neither. It's just Peter probably got cheated in some way. I don't know, but Madison had some pretty tough quotes. She said we're on different pages in every way, and she just It's really tough, particularly because he was saying things like, I want Maddie more than anything. I'm so in love with Maddie. And then his family, I mean, I don't even know what they really meant by this, but at one point, I believe his mom said, she's not there for you. She's not there for you, bud. They kept saying bud over and over and over
that
again.
Was a new one. I have a part in my notes where I bracketed and wrote in all caps, Juliet literally gasped at this part. And this was when Madison broke up with him, and she said, and general broad caveat here, we're transcribing live. I'm sure these quotes are wrong in 50 ways, but basically, when you want something so badly, I think a lot of times you can't see clearly. As much as we want this, I don't know that we can give each other what we need. Sometimes I think being a great warrior and being a good fighter is knowing when to surrender. And I do think that love still wins, and I do think that love still conquers all. And then, like, you start to think, oh, she's going to say that they can do it because I'm willing to walk away so that you can get what you came here to find.
That was intense.
Juliet literally gasped.
I did gasp. I think she showed a lot of poise, honestly.
It's a hard thing to do.
It is hard. It's hard to break up with someone.
Yeah.
It's hard to be like, this is really great, but it's not right for us or for me or whatever. So I give her props for that. I think that she should have left sooner probably, but she didn't. She wasn't ready.
Yes.
When you're ready, you're ready.
I agree with you. I thought when she said, I have to think about what's smart, what's wise, life outside of this, compatibility, I have to think about those things. I don't know that we're the best for each other. It's pretty hard to argue with that logic and that level of insight, and you have to be self-aware and you have to be able to be honest with yourself about your own life, or you're not going to be able to have success in a relationship. So credit to her for that. I think the question obviously is, will Peter be able to find that same level of self-awareness about his own feelings?
I don't know. I'm worried for Peter. I feel like we've also watched his physical demeanor just crumble or decay or something. I don't know.
This whole sequence, they have the bugs flying around.
I know.
Swatting his face.
The bugs were really rough.
His body language was so fascinating to track in this entire episode because
the
way that he was.
Around his family, the way that he, first of all, it really brought into focus how petite these two women are. They're so skinny. It's crazy.
He was like nibbling on Hannah Ann's shoulder at one point, which I found like in front of his family.
And then with Madison, he completely like enveloped her basically. Like I guess he just really likes the physical touch and likes to show it off in front of his parents. I don't know. I found that kind of odd.
Very strange.
Even like around anyone, that kind of PDA is like, okay, we get it.
It's a lot.
Like, just, save it for later when you're alone or something.
It's a lot.
But yeah, his body language is real. He really likes touch and he likes to be close.
Yes.
I don't know. I feel bad for him.
On tables.
I feel like he's looking at me in this picture on the table right now. It's creepy.
Oh, poor Peter.
Poor Peter.
So
Peter, poor Scar. I liked how his family asked for the scar. By the way, that was really funny.
That Scar is something. If Peter ends up with no one, I don't want to step on your night 2 pod.
Oh, it's fine.
But
we don't know anything.
Yeah, of course. Because I won't be here with you tomorrow, and I need to get your take. If Peter doesn't end up with anyone,
I don't think he's going to.
How long until Peter and Hannah Brown are back together? And, and how does that come about? How does Bachelor Nation facilitate that? Summer games? When does it happen?
I don't know if Hannah's going to summer games. I don't know if Peter's going to summer games. You can't go from having been the lead 5 minutes ago to summer games.
Will they have cameos on the Baker and the Beauty?
Oh my God! Is that that was so strange. I almost feel like, while I didn't think this was true at the time, in production will make it difficult. I would rather Peter and his producer get together than Peter and Hannah at this point. I feel like the pics I've seen, they like when they were at the wine tasting together a couple weeks ago, it seemed like they had some nice chemistry. I don't know. I liked him and Hannah though. It's a good question. I just feel like if Peter ends up single, which I think he is, then he just hits the club. He goes hard, and he's just like
he likes to go out and line dance.
We know he's Kardashian adjacent. There was that video of him a couple of weeks ago that like one of Kylie Jenner's friends took, and he was in the background of like explaining something about I think Victoria F perhaps. Like he's like living it up, and then when he like I think during football season, so it must have been in the fall, he was like at a Rams game hanging out with Kendall and Kylie Jenner. Like Peter is very close to the precipice of like legit LA fame. So I think he goes in that direction if he ends up single. Though he clearly likes a Southern belle.
You're the Bachelor scholar.
Oh, come on.
I'm just swinging by to audit for the night. Okay. But how
It's great to have you here.
It's an honor and a privilege to be here with you, as it always is. How rare is it, though, for the lead to not end up with someone? It's pretty rare.
It would be 2 in a row.
Rough. This is the point, though.
Super rough.
Not only would it be 2 in a row, it would be 2 people who had been in love with each other.
I know, like maybe they should just give it a shot.
Yeah.
See how it goes.
I don't know. I have a hard time imagining that we won't at least get some, even if it's performative, some
they should give it a shot
to, basically the equivalent of the Hannah Tyler, like, you want to go out for a drink sometime thing.
Except hopefully won't be captured on TMZ. That didn't help, I don't think.
Yeah.
Shout out to Tyler. Always and forever. I also just think with Hannah and Peter, there's like a proximity, but I don't know if you're watching this, who wants to date Peter? He's like in love with Madison.
Well, I think that part of the, and again, I say this with respect for all of my fellow Bachelor fans, part of the shared psychosis that we've all agreed to engage in together here is that you watch and you think, and to be clear, I'm not talking about myself here, but the viewing public, oh, he's just waiting for me. That's part of it, right? That's part of the way that you allow yourself to opt in so fully to what you're viewing. So I think that a lot of people out there would say, oh, Peter got a crop of women that he, that wasn't right for him. Hannah broke up with him and broke his heart, and he's still waiting. He just needs someone to make him forget about Madison, just like Madison made him. Because you would have said at the beginning of this season, and let's not forget, we're talking about like weeks ago, not years, not decades.
4 months.
How could he ever get over Hannah? And now here we are.
Right. Yeah, sure.
He's like a 27-year-old bro who likes to fuck 4 times in a windmill. He'll be fine. He'll move on in like 2 minutes. And I don't say that to minimize his heartache, which I'm sure is sincere.
I don't know. I think he seems sad.
He does seem sad. He is very sad. I think he is really sad right now and is very much in love with Madison. And I think that whatever unfolds tomorrow night will probably be very, like, genuinely devastating for him.
Yeah.
I feel bad for him. I think that he will also find a way to bounce back. He will. Maybe he will talk about this heartache forever, I'm sure.
He's basically got like 9 months of like super fame until there's a new Bachelor. So I hope it works out for him. Let's move on to our next question. Okay. Number 3.
Oh my God, are we only on number 3?
Well, this will be a shorter one. I promise. Number 3.
Oh boy.
Was there something funky with the editing that Hannah Ann got with her date after we saw the parents? Because here are some things. So first date with the parents, Hannah Ann goes by pretty quickly. Second date with the parents, Madison, feels like it lasts forever. I'm just like, okay, what else is there even to do in this episode? Keeps going. Then, allegedly, based on what Peter said, at one point he said like 2 days ago, or he said I had my heart broken 2 days ago. Right. So that would mean it went Hannah Ann, Madison again when they went to the park that Peter was basically reading her Wikipedia page about when they were in the helicopter.
Incredible retention on Peter's part.
Did he read a pamphlet and like just recited it back? It was good facts.
Maybe there was
helpful.
Like something in his ear, or maybe he had like a cue card in the distance.
That is possible because they were on a helicopter, so it's possible maybe he was getting
feeding him wiki nuggets.
Yeah, it totally is possible. Anyway, so then she breaks up with him. Then the next thing we see is him forlornly and looking very attractive, getting out of bed in the joggers. More on that. Rewind if you want to hear more about that.
Look great.
And then he has the sit down with Chris Harrison, and he's just absolutely, to use your word from before, despondent in that conversation. Chris Harrison looks despondent as well, leading me to wonder, is this man hungover?
Just all-time energy from Chris Harrison. He had the scruff.
Perhaps one of my favorite Chris Harrison appearances of all time. It was just it was a Dion Waiters-esque heat check performance.
Did you happen to jot down his opening exchange with Peter?
I did not. Did you?
I did.
Let's hear it.
Heard what happened.
Did he receive a raven? How did he get the information?
And then Peter followed up with not the best day. I just thought that was so funny.
It was kind of like a live text message exchange between men.
It really, but it really fueled the sensation that that Peter had interrupted his vacation, and he had been called.
He just seemed
duty.
So disinterested, and why am I here? He just seemed like
none of that fence jump.
No
energy.
Someone call Chris. No, none of that. It was kind of like an old school Papa Chris sit down. He did a lot of those with Hannah, so it's not even that old school. But he just looked like he had just like Peter had recently woken up and was just sort of, I don't know, recovering from the night before.
I guess
maybe he wasn't hungover, but it was hungover energy.
Vacation energy too.
You're right.
Know?
You're right. He's so relaxed, and he's just like, oh, I need to be intense. Not ready.
It was amazing. I guess the big question is, can you get over this heartbreak, or is this over? And that had just a very meta quality. Can this conversation that I am being forced to have with
can this conversation be over?
Yeah. Please, I gotta go golf.
It was pretty amazing. And so the way it was presented was that conversation happened before him and Hannah Ann. And
then we got Hannah Ann asking if they were going to a snake farm.
Yes. Why would it be a snake farm, Hannah Ann?
Just an all-time Slytherin comment. I thought she was going to start speaking parcel tongue and open the Chamber of Secrets.
You know that I don't know anything about Harry Potter, so let's just move on. It was super weird. Please stop. Also super weird. That was really strange. And then they do the kangaroo thing, super cute.
That
even me
so
with a cold heart felt it was adorable. It was very sweet. I agree.
Babies.
And then he goes to her that night where she looks hot. And I think that her date happened before the conversation with Chris Harrison, though they were showed in the opposite.
Oh, interesting. But not before Madison broke up with him?
After Madison broke up with him?
Because he referred to the heartbreak as you said.
Sorry. I think that the date happened. Yeah, the date happened before the conversation.
Is there a chance that when he referred to the heartbreak, it could have been the heartbreak of having his parents tell him that they don't support him being with Madison, but not necessarily the breakup with Madison? I just found myself thinking, how could he possibly be here with Hannah Ann? How?
I thought he went to break up with her when he was wearing the maroon sweatshirt or the deep red sweatshirt. It was very confusing.
I guess he's just going through the motions, man.
I think he doesn't want to let people down. I think he was really upset to let his parents down. I think not only is he really upset to have jeopardized his relationship with Madison, but he's also disappointed that he's disappointed her. I think he doesn't want to be a disappointment.
You might be right.
I don't know, but I just think there was something funky with the editing there. I just wanted to call it out because that's been a theme this season of weird editing. So throwing it out there. Next, number 4, did bring her home to us, which has been teased for weeks upon weeks, perhaps the entire season.
Oh.
Did that live up to the fence jump and Hannah saying Jesus still loves me for you? And let's put these in context.
Okay.
The fence jump is an incredible athletic feat, which we have not seen the likes of on reality TV outside of a few people on Survivor. And Jesus still loves me kind of redefined, I think, what The Bachelorette can be. Mm-hmm. And this has been positioned in the same way. It's part of this kind of new gambit where I think in this very spoiler-filled world, The Bachelor decides to reveal what could be among the most dramatic moments of the season, but by kind of owning it, they get to craft how people perceive it and the way that information is delivered, even if there are spoilers out there. So it's a very 21st century approach to marketing and teasing your show. And I think the returns on that might be diminishing, but I'm curious how you feel.
So, as is so often the case, I'm of two minds. And I'm eager to talk this through with you and let's find clarity together.
Let's get into it.
Here's part of why I think almost inherently it cannot live up to the fence jump or the Jesus still loves me standard.
Sure.
It's not a moment from the lead.
Right. So
it is, again, by definition, even though it was central to tonight's experience, it is tangential to
the
Peter's journey and the couple and what is unfolding.
Whoever the couple may be.
I also thought that we all spent so much time parsing and figuring out exactly what happened, what that could mean. Whereas, with Colton, we didn't know exactly what was going to unfold with Cassie that was going to lead to that. If you'll recall, with Hannah, they teased almost every aspect of that conversation with Luke. It was very clear what was going to happen, but it was so riveting and so empowering to watch her stand up for herself and her decision making and her sexuality in that way that it was just like astonishing in the best possible way.
Right.
It was basically like, is Peter's mom going to be talking about Madison or Hannah Ann?
Yes.
It was only ever going to be one of those things.
That's what I think the problem with it has been the whole time, is that it's like a real, the potential of what it could mean is really limited. It was always going to be about someone. I was hoping it wasn't. And this whole season, I've been like, it's more theoretical. I don't think it's about anyone in particular. Right. I was flat out wrong. And I'm kind of bummed to be wrong. I usually am fine with it. But like, it would have been more interesting if it was like a theoretical conversation with The Bachelor. Right. The fact that she's just like, we don't like Madison, but Hannah Ann is an angel on Earth is like kind of like boring.
I agree. However,
okay,
I will say that in the moment, I mean, we had the pleasure of watching this together, we were shouting, we were screaming, we were leaning forward in our chairs, we were giggling, we were saying, oh my God, we were whooping. It was pretty thrilling to watch it actually unfold. Now, part of that is what you already noted, which was that Peter was challenging. Yeah. I think you thought every time you saw this tease that Peter was just going to melt into his mother's arms and say, whatever you say, mommy, which would have been fine. It was also the culmination of this pretty protracted exchange that opened with Peter's mom just immediately crying because she doesn't like Madison and doesn't understand why Peter does.
Right.
Didn't, that whole other speech, the one you already referenced, she's not there for you, she's not there for you.
She's not there for you, bud.
All of that, and Hannah Ann is an angel on Earth. All I can do is pray that God enlightens him. A mother's intuition is never wrong. Some of that was to Peter, some of that was to the camera. When she actually launched into the full speech here, it was pretty mesmerizing. Hannah Ann loves you with all her heart. Don't let her go. Don't let her go. Bring her home to us. We will welcome her with open arms. We will welcome her with all the love in the world. All the love in the world. She's a dream come true, and God has placed her there for you. That's what love stories are made out of. Someone who's so madly in love with you. Again, probably got some of that wrong, writing quickly.
Right before and around that, also his brother was like, Hannah Ann is perfect and has no issues. Madison is setting up a lot of alarms and raising a lot of red flags.
You have a perfect girl right in front of you, and you're going to risk that. And they were baffled. And then, as you noted earlier, Peter saying, you gotta stop doing this. You gotta stop. It's literally destroying me right now. And then going to the camera and saying, I don't have their support. Like, that was
sad.
Pretty hard.
It was sad.
It really was.
Yeah. I think it's just sort of more, I think you're right though. It's not his defining moment. It's like their defining moment, which makes it a little bit less interesting. I have to say,
they needed his mom to be a character because he's not as compelling.
And she's very entertaining. Yeah. And I think that she kind of reminds me of a combination of like a lot of cool moms in movies where she's just sort of like really worried about her kid and also very sex positive. And it's almost like that's become a cliche because the movie's like Mean Girls or whatever. Right. But it is like refreshing and cool. And
I think that's great.
I'm talking myself into literally everyone from this episode but Peter. I'm like, Madison, I'm in. Barb, I'm in. Hannah Ann, I'm in. But the Weber men, I'm like,
I like Peter's dad a lot.
I like Peter's dad too. He's got a great smile.
Lovely smile, soothing energy. I think he seems really supportive and nurturing. And I think he's also someone who is, look, again, who knows whatever is really going on in somebody's life, but based on what we have access to, very happy in his own marriage.
Yeah, seems like it.
And wants that for his children, which I think is really sweet, you know? And the fact that he wants Peter to be, like, his namesake, to be loved as fully, and his parents said this in this episode, like, we want you to have what we have. Now, there's a part of me, I always, like, struggle with that a bit. Maybe this is just, like, child of divorce talking. Probably. That's fine. When the kids are like, I want to have the exact, like, I want to be with someone who reminds me of my mom or dad, and then the parents are like, I want my kid to have exactly what I have. I just am like, everybody's an individual. Let's all find our own thing. But I understand why for other people that's meaningful.
I think it's natural to gravitate towards people who remind you of other people in your life that you of course really like and love and whatever. I agree that it's really weird for Peter's family to be like, don't change, find someone just like you and just like us. Let's keep doing us, but like add a new member. Yeah. It's sort of like for the entire family tough. And if I were dating Peter, I'd be like, this is a red flag. Let's move to a different state and get some space.
Yes. I thought that was one of Peter's better moments, was when he said, again, as we talked about, like, that's what a relationship is, compromise and change. If you are fundamentally unwilling to compromise or make adjustments for your partner, you're not going to be able to find success in a marriage. And that's part of what's actually special about falling in love with somebody, is finding somebody who... People are really selfish, right? Like, human nature is... I'm
just like, right. I'm like, are they? I don't... That's a depressing way of looking at it.
But here's why I say that.
Sure,
I don't think that's a bad thing.
Sure.
You know, like, people can also be altruistic. I don't totally believe in, like, pure altruism, but that's for another podcast.
Okay.
People can be giving,
a lot of dark energy coming off of you.
Genuine, all of that. People also want to be happy.
Yes.
They want to feel good. And that's okay.
I feel like we've crossed into some weird psychology.
I mean, I'm just following Barb, you know?
You're right. Can I ask you, this is unofficial question 5. Official question 5 is, what did Peter find out tomorrow? We've already answered that.
Yeah, we have.
A different question for you.
Okay.
I feel like Madison is barely on this show. Even tonight when she was on it, like a good 60% of the show. Mm-hmm. I kind of like can't retain Madison moments. For some reason, they just like go in one side of my head and straight out the other. Do you feel like she has a real presence on this show? And because Peter talked about, like, they don't know her like I do, and they were obviously repeating inside jokes to each other. But, like, do you feel like you know who Madison is outside of her faith?
Her faith, playing basketball at Auburn, loving her dad, and having a pretty dope Air Jordan collection, which she shows off on Instagram. Those are the things I know about Madison. So no, but also I would say I don't feel like I got to know any of the women this season.
I agree with that.
I think that there was so much time devoted to
Tammy, Alea,
the fighting,
McKenna,
and the
Victoria.
drama.
You
and
probably know
Peter's
Victoria the best.
Response to the drama. But do we?
Well,
like, other than like the rumors and the drama that came in from outside of the show, on the show, what did you learn about Victoria? Other than that she can't communicate with Peter.
You're right. I just feel like we got to see more of her, like, her panicked responses to things than other people.
I think most of what we know about her, we learned on Reddit and
from Alea,
on the internet.
Who went on Reddit as well. It's true.
So I don't know. Nobody really got to develop. That's part of why they couldn't pick a Bachelorette from this season.
Yeah,
you know, there was nobody who anybody connected with.
Yeah, it's hard to really root for anyone, like, until like you see them go through this horrible, like, emotional shit, and you're just like, oh, God. Feel free, Madison. Feel free, Hannah Ann. I want to note, Madison, I don't know about Hannah Ann, but Madison has already signed up with an agent who represents a lot of Bachelor people to do, like, Instagram, social media sponsorships and whatnot. Okay. I presume Hannah Ann already had that as a model, but I just think it does speak to what their futures could look like.
Now that we've seen this, again, we don't know who he's going to end up with. Are you surprised that one of them is not going to be the Bachelorette?
No, I'm not. Are you?
I think Hannah Ann is getting a Bachelorette edit.
I think a little bit. They probably were still considering.
I mean, maybe she's just. I mean, she's obviously very young.
You got to feel heartbroken for her, right? I think that's it. I think she's too young, and we didn't learn enough about her outside of, like, this heartbreak. Even with Becca, when she had her heart broken, I feel like we got to know more about her. We knew about Becca. Her faith was important to her, but we knew about her father passing away. We, like, knew that she had a career. Like, we just knew more about who Becca was when Ari was dating her. We knew way less about Lauren, actually. I mean, knew that she had an affinity for leggings, and that's about it. and I think Ari and Lauren seem really happy, and they have a child, so it's really sweet. And Becca also seems like she's doing great. Everyone won there. But the Becca breakup. I mean, we haven't seen what's going to happen, but the Becca breakup also was kind of like paradigm shattering and ushered in. I'll never forget watching that episode.
Oh my God. So incredible.
Yeah, I mean, that was a whole different scene. I mean, literally, and it was just.
This finale has a lot to live up to. I mean,
I'm nervous.
The recent ones have been pretty astounding, even if the bulk of the season that led up to it wasn't. I think this was a promising first night. Yeah. Tomorrow has a lot of weight to carry.
This leads me into a question about this evening's finale. It's our 6th and one of our most important questions of the evening, if not the most important question. Why the fuck was there a studio audience? What was that?
I cannot answer this question for you. I have absolutely no idea. It was
Mallory. Chris Harrison sat down on the couches like he was about to interview someone, and no one ever came out. I was like, oh, are they bringing out Peter for a tease? Like, for comparison, with Hannah's finale, I clearly recall on the first night of it, she confronted Peter, and I understand like the order which they got rid of people is different here, but she confronted Peter. Right. Peter, that's when we learned that we love Peter's family. It's like that. Well, I had already known from the hometown, but like it was solidified. You know,
there were conversations unfolding.
There was a purpose of the studio, a live studio audience. Right. And then on the second night, her and Tyler did their thing. Previously, for Colton, on the first night, I believe that is when both Tayshia and Hannah G were in studio, and then the second night was devoted just to him and Cassie. Like, usually there's people in studio for this stuff. I'm honestly just so confused. There weren't even any Bachelor Nation people. At some points, tosses in and out of commercial. They didn't even show Chris in the studio. Like, what was that?
Well, I guess because no one actually left the show. Like, if Madison is coming back, there's no one they could talk to. But then why do it
Peter.
At all?
He's your bachelor. Where was he?
Well, there's not much that Peter has to say. I think we've learned that at this point. Though, of
talk
course,
to Peter's brother.
Yeah, bring out Barb. I'm surprised they didn't bring out Barb. Well, though I guess at this point it's like, what if he is with Madison? And then also, it's like, God, what is she supposed to say?
I know. So, did you watch the video of Charles Barkley yelling about Madison and Peter?
I did.
It's just a classic for me. It's a 2020 high so far.
Oh my God.
Madison's father is in that clip, right? Who I didn't notice for a while because he looks so young. He really doesn't respond. Like, I think he mostly doesn't respond because he can't, you know, like it's part of the rules. Like, he can't say anything. But when I watched it again, I was like, does he also hate Peter? And like, that's what's going on here? Or like, what's happening? All of the things that have happened since, and as we've watched this unfold, and Chris Harrison is right. If you think you know, you don't. Like, I don't know what to expect from tomorrow. We've made our hypotheses, but I don't know. I mean, Peter could, and they keep being like, so it's gonna. Not even Peter knows how it's gonna end. Does that mean he tries to get back together with one of them? Does that mean that he proposes? Does that mean?
I mean, it has to mean that something is going to unfold in real time, right? It has to. What else? Unless it's a total bit of misdirection. But I don't know. There was obviously nothing. There was absolutely nothing that required the studio audience or that setup, and
literally none.
No, like even the like transitional comments from Chris Harrison, which I have grown to adore over time because they're so hilarious in terms of needing to manufacture the drama, the most dramatic finale ever. Like, even he was just consistently repeating the same beat over and over, and there were numerous times where it cut and I thought he was going to say something and then it just zoomed into the square.
Yeah.
And went back to or out of the actual footage.
Yeah, it was confusing. We were like, can we go to the bathroom? Like, what's happening here?
Very bizarre. You know, he had one of the most controversial and shocking endings. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I have absolutely no idea why that transpired. None. Especially in the coronavirus era.
It's a great point. Why bring all these people together if you don't have to?
I don't get it at all.
Someone in there probably is infected.
Oh my God.
Horrible to think about.
Terrible.
The whole thing, though, I was just like, why is there a studio audience? I kept bringing it up as we were watching. I was so confused.
It was really strange.
And I was waiting for Peter to come out.
I know.
Or, like, anyone from Bachelor Nation. I also think last year, or for Hannah's finale, maybe it was the one before, the first night, like, they had previous contestants come out. Like, there's so much they could have done. Have Kelsey come out. I guess, I don't know, just many weird decisions. I do not understand why they had this studio audience. It's just
bizarre.
Baffling.
Really bizarre.
I guess it's to create atmosphere, but, like, you could still do that in other ways.
I just did not feel necessary at all. I did not understand it.
It was really weird.
Gotta keep up the TRT though for your running tally.
He's earned a lot of it in the last couple of nights. Or particularly this night, including this conversation he hated in Australia.
Incredible.
It was really something. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I don't know how it's gonna end.
I can't wait.
Mallory, thank you so much for joining me to break this down as we've processed it all. I'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place, Ringer social media platforms. It won't be solo. There'll be a guest, just in case that wasn't clear. Thank you to all of you for watching and listening. Bring her home to us.
Don't let her go.